Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to another edition of International Forum. I am Wilson Omasho. Today it is all about what is happening in Niger, but we're taking it from the international front. The US, France, and Russia interest, that is what we leverage on today on this particular edition of International Forum, talking about the Niger junta, the interests of these countries. You might have heard some news emanating that there's uranium in Niger. A huge gas and oil pipeline is passing through Niger to Europe. People like asking question, when it happened in Mali, how come US didn't mobilize? How come France didn't take it so serious? Talking about the junta that happened in Mali. What about that of Senegal, Guinea? You just name it. But now Niger is in the mix. It's like these countries are like saying, enough is enough. You have to practice democracy. And of course, Russia is like saying, look, I am not in support of what you're doing. I am not against it, but allow the people get what they want. You could see massive jubilation across Niger when it happened. Anyway, my analyst will throw more light on that. Before that, let's go around the world, bringing you stories making the rounds. I want to start off from USA, where Trump made a very strong statement in US court. He said, look, you can put me in jail if you want to, because from the age 50, I was a billionaire till date. If you put me in jail because of my ambition, the inmates in that particular prison will have me. They'll be happy to have me as an inmate. But it's going to be a general loss for the U.S. Now, that is a strong statement. Joe has been warned about making some very strong statement. It's all about the election that will take place in 2024. U.S. ex-President Donald Trump condemns latest charges. We're like, look, these are all trumped-up allegations. These is as a result of witch hunt. You guys are scared of me. You guys want me to run. That's the reason why I'm going through what I'm going through. If you want me to come out smoking really hot, why would you want to put these hurdles before me? Indirectly saying the Democrats, Joe Biden to preside, is afraid of Trump. That is what they are saying indirectly right now. They say, look, if you want us to go free, fair, credible election, don't impede my campaign. Don't try to stop me by the lawsuits. You are just leveraging against me. But the U.S., they are known for one thing. If you're found guilty or you have a case to answer, it doesn't matter how long it takes or what you have in store for the United States of America, you have to clear these cases first. As Trump is speaking on one side, the law is saying, no, this is not a case of witch hunt. You've been accused of all this, so we have to thrash them before you come out to say, really, you're found guilty and you now have the right to campaign. So it's like Trump's word versus the law. Who do you think will come out strong? And the big question now is, who is afraid of ex-President Donald Trump? That's a question in the hearts and mind of so many Americans. They're asking these questions. Why is this man being, dragged here and there? FBI investigation, rape investigation, all manner of investigation leveled against just one man. Some are saying it's because of his ambition. Well, the Lord definitely must have its way. Let's see how Trump will wriggle out of all this. Is it going to be a stepping stone for him when you talk about the U.S. election, or it is going to be his doom? Only time will tell. Because the court cases, they are mounting, and he's also resilient. Let's see in this matter who will bend and who will break. Let's move straight down to Afghanistan, where the Taliban, they are celebrating their anniversary. Yes, Russia made a very strong warning. U.S., when we have the time to crush the Taliban in Afghanistan, you supported them to fight us. Right now, you can't even hold on to that particular country in Afghanistan. The U.S. had to run away from Afghanistan because of the order given by Joe Biden that they are through with Afghanistan. And that was like the beginning of sorrow for some U.S. allies inside Afghanistan, because the Afghan Taliban government marks 2 years in prison. It has been a report of females being marginalized when we talk about education. Yes, they've been clamoring for education, but they are saying no to girls' education. They have to put stringent measures to make sure that the tradition, the culture, the religion is not being eroded because of education. And the female folks are not happy about it. Some are saying that this time around you gave the Taliban what they know as terrorists way back, government of the day. People have been loyal to the U.S. way back, trying to give information on how to dislodge the Taliban. Are now the ones suffering because right now they have no place to go. They have no place to run. Many of them lost their life when U.S. officials and military left Afghanistan, and many of them have so many bitter stories to tell. 2 years after Taliban take over of Afghanistan, what has the country become? Take a look at the empty classroom. Just one girl that is allowed to be in class without a teacher. You can see repression in her face. She's just sharing a testimony about how things have gone so down in Afghanistan since the Taliban took over. But the Taliban say, look, it is our country. We are passing through a very rough patch, but eventually we'll get through. The big question now is, since the Taliban have been in power, do you think that it is going to encourage terrorists to bring out their heads the more to start opposing government in the Middle East? Now, that's a question in the hearts and mind of so many persons. But the story has not been that palatable for so many of the children there, for so many of the females, even for some males who don't like the way things are doing in Afghanistan. But what can they do? They are there. They have to survive. They have to eke out a living. And that's why they're doing everything possible to make sure that they're able to, flow. When I say be in synergy with the Taliban government that is ruling Afghanistan right now, would you want to say with an iron fist or with something commensurate to an iron fist? Definitely, we're watching our sister report back to you. Now let's move straight down to Russia, where missile attack is what is reigning right now. The Russia-Ukraine war, the missile this, the missile that. I am conquering some region, I'm reclaiming some region. But this time around, Russian airstrike on Western Ukraine kills 3. The war is really getting out of hand. Ukraine, on the other hand, are claiming victory of some part of the Donbass region, while Russia is pummeling that country. I mean, it's pounding the country. Look at the missiles. All right, now, Ukraine, they didn't deny the fact that their drones attacked Moscow. And ever since that attack, the Russia said they were able to bring down the drones. Russia is like they are this angry, wounded, hungry lion. Nobody is stopping them now. Is one drone attack or the other against Ukraine. Right now, they're using missiles. What in the world is going on? I was thinking that the remedy, will I say, the sit-out solution that held in Saudi Arabia, peace talk that took place in Saudi Arabia, will bring out something positive from this war. Because Saudi Arabian prince said, look, he would do his best to broker peace, but it's like nothing came out of it. And Russia is really pounding that country. That's why the fact that weapons have been supplied to the Ukrainian army, that's why the fact that money has been given to them, but it's like they're not just, I don't know much for Russia. Yes, Russia is a big country. Whenever they want to engage this kind of a thing, God have mercy on who they really want to vent their anger against. All right, I just believe that Erdogan, the president of Turkey, will do something about this because the carnage is just too much. Putin said, look, peace talk is not out of the table, but we have to do what you want, we want you to do. What were the conditions given by Putin? Dismember your army, disband the military, go home, leave the Donbass region, and there will be peace. Zelensky is saying, no, we're going to take over all the land conquered by Russia, even Crimea. And that isn't going too well with Putin. And now the carnage is on. The war is on. It's raging. There's nothing good that can come out of war. Even when you are winning or you're losing, nothing good can come out of it. I just pray that the next meeting that I'll be having with Xi Jinping, or will I say Erdogan, will really bring forth something positive, because Russia's like going all out. I mean, all out against the Ukrainian offensive, and it is not funny. It is not really funny. Well, right now we'll go on a break. When we return, it is going to be France, US, and Russia's interest in what is happening in Niger Republic. How about the junta? You really want to know why these countries are so interested in Niger Republic? Why are they saying you have to switch over immediately to democracy? We're not saying no, our uranium, we sold it to you for so and so amount, and you get the profit, you give us only $11. I mean, $100 something dollars. We'll talk about that. We'll take a break. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, and we are taking a look at Niger junta, the interests of US, France, and of course, Russia. Is it a proxy war that is happening right now by this country? In other countries of the world, will Niger become a casualty, or does this coup, is it really going to expose many things that we don't know about what is really happening in Africa? What about the operations of the US in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Libya? What about that in Ukraine and Russia? Can you make sense out of what is really happening in this region? Because these countries are involved. And right now, it's like they are breathing on the neck of Niger Republic. What is democracy actually? Anyway, my analyst will throw more light on that. Join me to welcome Honorable Etiosa Igebo, a.k.a. Sunny. I won't forget that name.
Good afternoon, viewers.
Good afternoon,
I know you
welcome.
won't forget that
Welcome, welcome.
That was your first name.
All right. Now, if you take a look at the situation right now, despite ECOWAS tweet and all that, they're talking about negotiation, the junta is still very much in charge, believe it or not. Yeah. And now, the France military, they are trying to infuse something into Niger, saying you have to come back to democracy. US also, on the other hand, is saying, look, democracy is the way forward. You must go to democracy. We have ECOWAS. We have the UN. We have the EU. What about the African Union? They're saying, look, you must come back to democracy. But like saying, there's something more to this than meet the eyes. After all, we've had coup in Mali. All these countries, though they said something, they're not as forceful as they are right now about the situation in Niger Republic. What is really making them to feel this uneasy? Don't forget Russia also that says, look, you have to allow these people have the kind of government that they want. We're not in support of it, we're not against it. But if push comes to shove, we may just be forced to take sides. Take it up from there.
Well, Russia has been economical with the truth. They're playing politics with what is happening in Niger because it's of direct interest to them. You know, in the Nigerian states, I've always wanted a situation where they build a pipeline through Niger, through Algeria, through Malta into Europe, where we can practically be the second major supplier of gas to Europe. And the Russian and the Ukrainian problems has a lot to do with the idea of Russia's supply of gas to Europe that has created cheap energy and people being able to have affordable house heaters and energy, minerals or whatever. However, now that Russia is having a problem with Nord Stream 2 because of the fight between Russia and Ukraine, which I've always said on this platform many times that it was predominantly engineered and started by the influence from the countries like the US and England and France and Germany, the European Union. Obviously, you don't expect them to be happy if Nigeria is coming on board to probably take a step in that direction, because we know President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as part of his campaign, did say, why can't Nigeria take advantage of the fallout of Russia and the European trade with gas and other sorts of energy supply to Europe. So the plan to build a pipeline from Nigeria to Europe is an alternative for the Western country. So that way, if Russia was to tell you that what the juntas has done with them, they're not taking sides, but let the country decide what they want, they will be very much economical with the truth. But don't forget, Niger is an extension, is like a 37th state of Nigeria. You know, because the ties between Niger, Chad, and these countries is very strong with Nigeria. And that is why you see certain kind of uprising of people of certain region, particularly saying that there should have been war in Niger. And I'm happy that dialogue is also taking place now. So I think the interest is purely mineral and strategic location.
Purely mineral and strategic implication. Now, if you take a location, now, if you take a look at Niger, and of course, with what the country has been going through, some are saying they ought to be richer. They ought to live better than what they are right now. Take it up from that angle.
Well, if you speak of Niger, that they ought to be richer, I think the same thing will apply to Nigeria as well. And the same thing will also apply to many African countries. Why they are rich in minerals, and some other Southern American countries, and some countries like, for example, in the Western world, whenever a country is blessed with minerals, whether gold, silver, diamond, uranium, tanzanite, californium, whatever you want to call it, or crude oil, there's always the interest of the Western countries in those places. They want to come and take cheap energy, create a bit of a instability, play politics with the minds of the people, empower a certain militia, either through democratic means, as they call it. Like, for example, you have a president in the country who does not really have the wherewithal or the willpower to fight for more, to kind of speed up development and create a more better enabling environment for their citizens. Then they can, situations like you sell our mineral for $100 and something and they give us $11. That led to why they said they were engaged in the coup. A enlightened mind does not support coup. I do not support coup, because you don't want a situation whereby it keeps spiraling over to other regions and other countries. Certain coup plotters may be reasonable and a bit exposed. Some coup plotters are not like that. They can come on board and they can start to commit atrocities. So it's always better to have somebody who you don't want as president to be taken out through a democratic process. But sometimes when people force coup, like they did in Niger, it's always instances of those who were close to the corridors of power, who felt the president should do otherwise. But if he was not doing that, and as the man who is protecting the man who is favorable to the Western countries because of what they are benefiting from Africa, they deemed it fit to say, well, we think you need to go. And, but at the same time, it doesn't look good for democracy. And it doesn't make sense if you are using military means to do it. And it is more difficult for them to do it any other way, because, with politics, there's a lot of areas with manipulations at times, and sometimes maybe influence and inducement from the people in power, and with the contributions of the Western countries that is benefiting from the minerals and resources of that country. Why the country remains poor, may always find a way to put their favorite person in power, whereby authority and what they wish can always happen. So if you say that Niger is poor because of the happenings of the day, the same thing also affects countries like Nigeria, where you have so much and yet it doesn't reflect on the life of the people. Well, if you compare that to the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, and you compare that to Saudi Arabia, you now wonder, and Qatar, you wonder why they have minerals and they have oil, they have all sorts of blessings from God in their land, and their country is operating and running very well. You really want to ask yourself, why is this things like that? And I can only tell you what I think is the reason. They say it's leadership. But then again, the influence and the interest on the outside from the colonial masters who left, but they never left. They left, but they were always present. For example, they talk about issues to do with Mickey Mouse freedom, whereby they still have interest in Africa. Their involvement has not created the needed stability, and for some reason this country remains poor, even at the center of having all these resources that has been given to them by God.
All right, now can one deduce what is happening right now in West African region, ECOWAS to be precise, the Francophone countries? Can one deduce that France is not really a good colonial master, because it's the Francophone countries that was hit by coup d'etat?
Well, neither France, the English, the Americans, the Portuguese, the Spanish, whatever, you can never have good colonial masters. If you look at the problem with South Africa, why sometimes when the xenophobia problem was happening, the way the South Africans, who are our brothers, were taking on Nigerians, it looked as if we were from two different planets. All these frustrations they have has a lot to do with the colonial masters, which is predominantly the English, especially when you look at the times of Margaret Thatcher, for instance. France as a colonial masters, if they were doing well, I don't think the problem in those Francophone countries would be there today. You know, as you can know, the major interest is to go there and steal or maybe take minerals and don't pay for them. You see what I'm saying? And when you go back to their countries and you live and work there, they don't want you to take anything off without being fully accountable according to the doctrines of the law. But when they're in Africa, they do otherwise. So with the French, it's obviously clear, even when you listen to the EU ambassador from Africa to the United Nations, they're always very angry at the way the French and the Germans and the English, and they're all just people, colonial masters who are very unashamed of themselves, and they're in countries and they're just ripping them off, and they think that what you get is enough to develop you, and then you come back and you see our leaders themselves also creating the problems. So somewhere you can only have little blames for those that are cheating you and come back and look inwards to say, well, what are we doing differently? So like the military coup now, it's not looking good because the ECOWAS state is not going to have none of that. The junta may look bad, but if you look deep down to the happiness, it may not look good. But the reasons why they are doing it is the sort of things that Africa needs to really attract that needed development, accountability, and proper spending and accountability of the resources that comes to Africa. So what they are doing is right, but the way they are doing it is what is not right. Using the military force to force a duly elected democratic president out of power, to me, that is not good at all, and I don't think it's something that the West African state will condone. But I'm happy that dialogue is on the table now.
All right, dialogue is on the table. Now let's take a look at France. Some of the opinion that France don't want to leave the areas or the countries they colonized. Take a look at the currency, have the CFA francs, that they don't want to just let go. Whether you like it or not, they have this direct or indirect grip over their former colonies. How true is this?
Yeah, that's very true. For so many years, they've had grip over those colonial masters. They wrote the system that is followed today. They actually designed that system. And that system is a false system. It's a system of you know, those stealing with a pen. Like they say, fella used to say people steal 100 million with a pen. It goes nowhere. Nobody questions them. And a hungry master's a biscuit or maybe a tuber of yam in the market, it gets jungle justice. You know, he got tied to a tree or a particular drum, or he's shot dead because he stole money from or something from the market. But the bigger guys who are doing the needful and taking money that belongs to the general public with a pen, you know, there's no problem. But when they carry arms, maybe cutlass, knives, or guns, they get capital punishment. Those people using pens are the one that designed the law that looks at capital punishment. So the French is a poor country without their hold in Africa, on African states. What do they really have? If you don't consume what they produce, how are they going to sustain all the development that they have if not for the minerals they steal from Africa? They know. That is why they are hell-bent on finding ways to manipulate themselves around and want to stay on. I was listening to the French president the other day speaking.
Yeah, Macron.
He talked about how he was apologizing for all the things they've done for donkey years, even before our fathers were born. And all of a sudden, they're looking for a way to constantly maintain the relationship and let us find a new ground out of mutual respect. You really wonder, somebody that wants to respect you, why does it have to take over 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 decades or more for you to understand that things needed to be done with mutual respect when you take so much from these people over the years? And you see them hungry, you see them dying, it comes up with all kinds of problems for them. Anything you take overseas, you process it, you bring it back, you sell it at exorbitant prices. You install people to rule over them, not lead them. I mean, come on. How can you really just believe such people? And I don't think they're going to go anywhere, because if they go, they don't have anything to sustain their country.
Well, now some are saying that this is beyond coup d'etat. This is like emancipation from the colonial masters. From a certain point of view, is there an iota of truth in that mentality? That is not about we fighting ourselves. We want to break free totally from France.
Well, on one argument, people can say that it's emancipation, but do we need to have, how many years of democracy have we had in Nigeria? How many years of democracy have we had in Ghana? And how many years of democracy have we had in South Africa? with the things that happens with the people and education, are you not shocked? If you talk about the Western powers, who are predominantly more stronger than us, from the formation, haven't been in the country for years and taken what they've taken, how long are we, the Africans ourselves, who are in the receiving end, come together to really say, well, this is what we want? We can complain about France or Germany or the US as much as we want, but they are not the ones in the receiving end. They've gone back to develop their country. Have we, from what we've gotten, which is more than enough to develop our country, have we done that? No. Instead, you see our people having 4 or 5 private jets, having houses and penthouses, having houses in countries they don't even live in, taken over by cobwebs and spiders. And then you want to complain about the man who wants to come and take something off you, trying to mislead you to keep his country going. I think the biggest problem lies with the African people. They are the ones that is their own problem.
How?
Because if you know that somebody is coming to take something from you, and they're not giving you what you deserve, you can come together as a team and as a unit to not demand what you want, but at the same time, you must be very reasonable in the way you do things. You must not squander your own money that you get. You must not squander the treasury of the country. And then you expect reasonable people to blame those who wants to take from you when you're on the receiving end.
You just hold on. I want to go for a break. We'll return. We'll continue the discussion. France, US, and Russia's interest in what is happening right now in Niger Republic. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. If you just joined us, this is International Forum, and I am Wilson Omasha. It's all about the interests of France, US, and Russia in Niger coup d'etat. People have been talking about this, saying this goes beyond just a mere coup. For you to see 3 great nations saying we want this, and one is saying no way. Let the people be. In this question that is emanating right now from the hearts and minds of so many citizens globally, they are saying in one way the junta is correct. Others are saying no matter how you view it, the junta is wrong. Well, now we have great nations for and of course against what is happening right now in Niger. That is what we're taking a look at today's edition of International Forum. President Mohamed Bazoum has been captured already, and that seems to be like the bargaining chip for the coup plotters, so to speak. And now we have ECOWAS, we have AU being pushed, according to report by these Western forces, to see what they can do to restore democracy. And there is one nation that stood out. He said, look, let the people be. We are not in support of what they are doing. We are not against what they are doing, but let them get the kind of government they want vis-a-vis Russia. And you get to see the city of Niger Republic clamoring, chanting for Russians to come help them in this, how will I call it now, the battle of the mind, or what they're anticipating might just happen. Russia taking a different stand. What do you feel about this?
Well, I don't think it's going to go far. I don't believe that. Niger is pretty much a landlocked country. To a large extent, I don't think they have access to water. Like I said, it's just like the 37 states of Nigeria. You can see the relationship between the northern part of Nigeria and most of the residents in Niger. And of course, you know, the immediate past president, President Muhammad Buhari, said he has cousins in Niger. And he talked about if Nigerian resident troubles him,
you go to Niger.
Go to Niger. But I'm sure he won't go to Niger now. That is the reason why he should have done certain things within his powers when he was the president, not thinking that way. Because if you think you have an option, certain things can be developed to be destroyed, and they don't care. So, for me, I think the Russian is just playing politics. Yes, they can support Niger junta, not as effective as they would if they can move heavy equipment through water. So these are tactical aspects of things. Nobody's life is worth being taken over the issue of the coup. But for the Russians to say that they are not against it and they are not for it, that can already tell you that they're not being sincere with the process. They just want to create problems and show their frustrations with what America has done with the Ukrainians to trouble their business and drag them into war, which they felt as a superpower they needed to take on. So my own take on the Russians' part, I'm not really a fan of their position on the issue, because what we're all looking at is the fact that military intervention is never a way to solve a problem that has to do with the idea of good governance. Because the military men are given the standing to protect the sovereignty of the country. If they now turn around and become a menace, where would that stop? If the ECOWAS state does not take actions, which is obviously fine, the issue of interest is there, the Americans and the European Union and the Europeans who colonized us, because don't forget, from the US to England to France to Germany to Italy to Spain, they are all one family. They are the same people who went around conquering the world, no matter how they call their names. And then the Russians are on the other end having their own challenges as well. They also conquered people too. So at the end of the day, it's more like the two superpowers fighting, and the spillover from Ukraine and Russia war is what is coming to Africa now. Because if the US and Russia had a good bilateral relationship with Europe, Russians will not come up and give the junta the idea of saying that, well, what they've done, they're not against it, or they are for it, but let the people decide. How would the people decide when the duly elected president has been forced out of office? So that's why the ECOWAS is saying, aside the fact that the Americans and the British and the French have their interest, to say, well, let democracy return back to norm. I think that with the negotiations now, it has a lot to do with assurance and security guarantees. They may exile those juntas eventually to say, well, you move out of this country, let President Bazoum come back. There's no way Bazoum will come back and still allow those guys to remain there. So it is one bit you're trying to fight for your country. Next bit, how you've gone about it. If there was a way that the military junta would have, well, we take over power, we want a new election, we want somebody else who can really negotiate better deals for Niger to come on board, that could also be part of the negotiation. Because I think they see President Bazoum as a weak leader who would sell your product for so cheap, where people who are taking it are almost benefiting 100%. And you have one of the poorest countries in Africa, and you have all these minerals and resources sitting on your ground, and at the end, your people are struggling and relying on aid from the same people who's ripping you off. So it's kind of neither here nor there.
Not there.
I am not coming out I condemn the coup because it's a military coup.
Yeah.
But I said the idea of them doing it is not wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't have negotiated and engaged with other senior ECOWAS states to say, look, we're having these problems. Why don't we come together through the ECOWAS parliament to intervene in Niger and say, well, what they are buying this for is too cheap. What they're taking this and selling this for this much money, we think we should get some more. Why don't they get the leaders to encourage their president to do that, knowing fully well that they're also stakeholders? To pull out the gun and use the barrel of the gun to seize power it's not what we need now. Democracy has been long fought for, and I think democracy should be here to stay. But like I said before, the junta, they are open to dialogue, and you see most Nigerian prominent men like Absalami Abubakar, Babagana Kingibe, the former emir of Kano, and other religious scholars from Nigeria going to Niger, because that interrelationship has been able to help to broker some kind of round-table talk discussion. We want Niger to grow. If Niger grows and things are good, we will enjoy it in Nigeria. So I support development. I think it's really nasty and very unfair for the French colony or the French as a country, France, to sit on these people for so long, keep them poor, steal all their resources and their minerals, and then keep them where they are by dashing them handouts and indebt them to their country when they know they have nothing they are living for. All the things that France has lived for, go to Ivory Coast, they have gold, go to Burkina Faso, go to Senegal, all these Francophone countries that they've taken over. Look at Cameroon. How could you have a situation whereby France and America and these countries are there? France as a superpower who colonized a Francophone country. We have one man as president, democratically elected for over three decades.
30 years.
And then how two-faced can you be to come around and say, well, you're in Africa with your pale skin and you want to help them? Obviously, they're not there to help them. They're there to steal. And that is what they've been doing. Just that Africans are getting wiser by the day. And I want the military men, as part of the African state, to channel advices through democratically established platforms like the ECOWAS or the government of the day, and demand what they think is rightfully theirs, and come home and then make sure that that money is used judicially for the citizen, so that this mass migration to Europe and people dying crossing the Red Sea between Egypt and whatnot, it's all reduced because
the rest of that.
We're African. Africa is a good continent with good weather.
All right.
But because of their unnecessary bickering and interference and oppressive rulership idea of people they engineer to lead Africa or rule Africa badly is what they've been living up from. I'm sure one day that will stop.
All right, now let's take a look at the warning some pundits are like issuing, saying, look, don't trust the U.S. when it comes to matters of your country, especially in country that is outside of the USA. One, they accuse the U.S. of coming into a particular situation where they have a lot to gain. They set an example of Libya. Take a look at Afghanistan. Don't forget about the Syrian war, how the U.S. negated those areas they left when they were needed the most, according to some pundits. Don't forget also what is happening between Ukraine and Russia. They are saying, look, don't allow these guys in, because if there's only to fight for, you will not hear them talk about democracy. How true is this thought pattern towards the United States of America?
It's very true. The U.S. is a superpower. Their foreign policy is extremely hostile. They don't care about anybody. Even if you live within the U.S. and you're in the country, you can tell that the issue of racism is on the highest point, but they pretend that it is cool, you know. But at the end of the day, certain people find their footing there, and they're happy in the U.S., and some people are not. You know, when you look at the slavery and how our brothers and sisters were taken in shackles, and sometimes many of them from the history, like a movie called Armistead, people being thrown for sharks to feed on when they think they can't sustain with the food to take them to Europe. The very evil acts. You can already tell that those people are just human beings with no hearts. To an extent, they don't really care. They're interested in countries with minerals and natural resources. They've never hidden it from their actions. But that doesn't mean that their contributions and existence as a country has not also helped the world. You know, their contribution, technology, whatever the U.S. has got to bring, whether they're pretending or not, they expect you to say from what you get, use it to develop your people. The French and the U.S. and these people will never leave Africa. Forget about it. They will never leave. What we'll need to do is to find a way to strike a balance. They bring their expertise as the bigger boys. Then whatever we get as nations, we go and utilize it 70, 80, 19%. For our people. We don't need too much of these houses and cars and what the Africans have and material things and this character of showing off on platforms where younger people copy such acts, and it's all vanity. So my own position on some of these issues is very simple. We know that these people cannot change the way they are, because no matter how much they tell you that they've left your country, like Afghanistan, like Iraq, like Libya, they are dealing on their crude oil. They are using militias and mafias to steal this crude. If they can steal crude from Nigeria for so many years, from the findings that Tompola and them guys were identifying in the Niger Delta, where they pipe crude oil, illegal pipes, and they take those crude through with big vessels. After loading it for so long, they take it to Europe or America to sell it without them questioning where those things are coming from. You think they will ever change the way they are? They're not going to change. But then those things don't happen without the support of us Africans. Human beings, forget your profession, whether you're military, you're in the office, you're a navy, whatever. People get hungry, and they get hungry for certain character and certain ways that they want to live. They get greedy, and then they sabotage their own country, sometimes without even knowing. But then again, there was what they called joint enterprise back in England. And some of the things that Americans do in America, when they look at a syndicate of drug dealers on the streets, they don't put more punishment on the ignorant man sent on the street to sell drugs to destroy people's life, because they don't want pressure on their health services. When people are mental, they can do a lot of nasty things to innocent people. So they look for the kingpin. And the kingpin, when they pin him down, they can take away 1,000 men away from the streets, from not getting supplies to cause damage to the health system. So you can apply the same model to the big boys who are stealing this crude oil. If they don't buy this crude oil in America and in England and these countries, and they don't engineer it, I'm sure the crude oil will be as good as nothing. But a product that you can buy for $100, $200 million a piece, and somebody pays and moves such money through the wire system, and you don't question it, you can tell that we are living in a Mickey Mouse freedom, a democracy like Fela described as democracy of Christ. Democracy of Christ or something like that. So it is what they do. They just look for different models and ways to do it. So if you want to blame the US for doing what they do, if you were in the position, like the big man will come who's strongest, who take everything. But if they give you some, they think that is what you should get, then maybe you should be wise enough to use that to develop your people and come together much stronger, because the stronger you become, the more they respect you. I mean, what the junta and the coup in Niger has shown us is that if the military man comes up and says, we are tired of this thing, and they do what they want to do, it gives those people a sense of belonging that, look, these Africans are getting wiser by the day. They keep manipulating Africans. So, to me, the problem cannot just be laid on the table of the US alone. Because they go to different countries and do this. When you have no oil, like when they were fighting between the Sudanese, Southern Sudan, and whatever. I remember it was the Clinton's wife. Yeah. She says we have no vested interest in Sudan because they don't have no natural resources that they can take. Africa has the biggest deposit of golds in the world, majorly, or the African state, third world country.
Ghana.
But we don't have what they call gold holdings. Gold holdings is what they peg the dollar to. That's what makes your currency strong. How come all the countries with gold holdings, America, England, and all these European countries, China, India, their currencies are very strong? They'll take your own minerals, through shady deals, steal majority of them, like what was happening in Zamfara. They'll use it to show up their currency against yours and weaken yours. Like a lady was saying, how do you put a big man and a little man into the same boxing ring, like China and maybe Burundi, being in the same field to say, let us compete over economic issue? How are you going to ever survive? Or America, or Europe? So the whole hulu-balu and mischievous acts of people portraying themselves in suits and ties to look so good because of probably the way they look, or those who think they're in power, by the time everybody starts to understand that whatever we get now from the dealings with the Western world, to me, is enough for us to develop ourselves. Okay. Irrespective of what we think the cheatings or the extras that they take might be. If you look at Niger now, the money they've earned from the minerals they're taking, if they truly wanted to develop that country, where the African leaders especially have the biggest problem, because they're the ones wearing the shoes, they are the ones the shoes are hurting, and not doing the needful, you see that money will be enough.
All right. Now, some of the people that Russians are the ones behind it because of the a pipeline that is passing through West African region to Europe, thereby blocking their own supply of gas and, of course, oil to Europe, weakening them because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. And don't forget also that it was one of the Wagner group already in Niger recruiting, and they are getting set for a showdown. And that pipeline seems to be the vested interest of Russia. Take it up from there.
Well, like, I think we had this conversation before when the Russia-Ukraine war issue was on the front burner. Yeah. And we said that we'll worry about this war spiraling into other regions because of interest. Remember, I said that to you. And then the issue of grains came in, that things have got so expensive now because the grains is now sold for much higher prices. Because the Russians are blocking the supply from Ukraine, or smaller supplies are coming from Russia. I am not surprised that the Russians will want to do that, because that is a major source of their earnings. if the U.S. has blocked that, and then the president in Niger haven't been a pro-Western president, and the people that was protecting the president, which are the military guys, who are our own brothers anyway, they're just wearing a uniform. That is the only difference. Anybody can carry a pull, drive, ban, command authority. It can be even the most dumbest in the world. So there's no big deal about being in the military or wearing a uniform. You carry a gun and you decide what you want to do with it. If the trigger changes hands, the junta becomes like chicken still. So that is by the wayside. Those people, the military guys, having a Russian influence may not really see the light of the day, because first and foremost, they are fathers and mothers. The military may have families as well. They have children, they have wives. They have brothers, they have sisters. They are talking for the country. There's no way the relationship between Nigeria and Niger will be undermined because of the uniqueness that we have. Maybe President Buhari have relatives there. The junta may be related to him. They may get to a point and say, don't listen to Russia. We're not interested in going to war. We don't want anybody's blood to be lost. So let's do the needful. Put the cards on the table. So Russia will do that because they feel hurt that the US and the Europeans stood for what was not good in their own economic development. And we on our other side, because you say Europe it had to pay Paul, we'll be more than happy to be the one taking Russia's place supplying gas to Europe. It means that we can even earn more money with gas supplied to Europe than the crude oil. Still, because
and that's what is disturbing Russia right now. Hence, that triggering the disturbance in Niger Republic via the coup.
No, I mean there was a coup in Burkina Faso.
Yes.
There was a coup when they brought back Ouattara, President Ouattara, to take over from Gbagbo. It was supported by the French government because President Gbagbo refused after the collapse of the world financial system to release the 32 billion, 38 billion euros they had in foreign reserve in France to the French government, to use it to spend the money and pay them later. I said, well, that is the security shorties for Ivory Coast. But what did they do? They went around the back. They engineered Ouattara, who was married to a French woman, who was a
subtle manipulation of the system.
And they came and they used the UN, the peacekeepers, to get rid of Gbagbo and charge him to say.
No, these are just speculations, so they just can't prove it.
No. It was on TV. It was
speculations because they'll say that they happen to do with it.
Let me tell you, when this incident happened, it was on TV.
Yeah.
The guys with the tanks with the blue helmets was firing at the villa. They got rid of him and said, well, you've lost. You must give power to Ouattara, and he handed over to him. So, and that was when the Drogba was playing football and he did a rebel salute. And it created a lot of problems. But the French countries and the Western world, they rewarded him and gave him a certain percentage of the minerals mining in Ivory Coast.
These are just speculations. These are just speculations. We are talking about,
Well, you see, the thing is, those are by the wayside. But I'm just trying to tell you that whenever they get the support, they do. It's all about resource control. So, but for me, I strongly believe that Russia will keep doing their bits to create a bit of difficulty. But then we as Africans need to come together, because when the pipeline goes through Niger, Niger will benefit from royalties. They can add that money to whatever they already have exporting. Or if they want the countries to come and develop and produce in their own country, it is a process. It's not something you can achieve with the barrel of the gun.
Yeah.
So the barrel of the gun now, look at the sanctions against them. All the financial system blocked, all these things, Nigeria closed their borders with them. The people, they are hungry now. So how long can the juntas hold on for before the people turn against them? So this issue is very timely, and I believe that this negotiation on the table, why they said they want to negotiate, they understand it's the best exit point for them. Because even if you're talking about military power, with the ECOWAS state coming together and Nigeria leading the path, trust me, they can't even survive it. Because at the end of the day, they don't have a land waterways that can help them achieve and get heavy equipment supply, unless they want to do it through other border nations. But then again, the French and the Americans and the English and all these other countries will make sure that they survey those areas and take out anything that wants to come from there. So these things are achievable, but I don't think I'm going to war with the instability in Africa, because after war, there's what they call the aftermath. Light weapons proliferation, supply of arms and ammunition that will destabilize other people. So we don't really need that now, and I believe dialogue
is the best solution. Now, before we call it a wrap on the show, can one deduce that this might just be the squabble or the fight between colonial masters?
Yes, I think they said Africa will rule the world. Maybe Nigeria will rule the world one day. That time would come. Because when they take out the minerals and the natural minerals that they have their hands on, oil in Nigeria, gold, diamond, californium, like what one of our brothers, and Mustafa was talking about. I've never seen californium before. Uranium in Sambisa Forest, the place that they said the Boko Haram, the Chibok girls, all these politics they played with the whole life of innocent people, irrespective of however it has happened. Thank God today that area is also very relatively peaceful now, and we're happy about that. It's all down to a new world order.
New world order.
Yeah, so whatever they've been doing for many years, whatever goes up must come down. All the world superpowers has gone up and come down. God is the ultimate and is the giver of life and is the taker of life. No matter how much you think they will reign for, no matter how much the colonial masters think they can keep manipulating things for, when it becomes so obvious for the layman to see, there are many things that is not balanced. Let us come to a drawing board and have a new negotiation. That's what they talk about in the Nigerian Constitution, was written by the junta, the military men back here.
Yeah.
They need, that is why they keep seeing adjustments and bills every time to adjust the Constitution, because it is tailored to favor certain people. It's a human thing.
All right, thank you.
Maybe with all these new directives and new directions and actions here and there will help to balance.
Thank you so much, Honorable Joseph, for a wonderful analysis. France, U.S. and Russia interests. You've heard him, and his analysis, his opinion, but it's quite on point because this is what has been happening or going on in the minds of so many citizens in Africa, saying, "Come on, how come these three great countries just want to converge in Niger? Is it a big dish to be eaten, a big dish to be shared? What will be in for these African nations? They be able to restore democracy right now in Cote. Do you think it is going to spread around the West African region, vis-a-vis through African region, to make Africa more stable? When you talk about Africa as a continent, only time will tell. Like what we always say, democracy is still the best form of government. Thank you once more. I appreciate your comment. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll do it again next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.